now we have some Dodges and some Chevys. And so some of the things that we have had to change to have required that we just gut and amend. I mean, we can't, you know, the cage out of a Crown Vic doesn't fit in a Ford Expedition. The Crown Vic used to have one cage to protect the driver from a passenger. When we're running the full-size SUVs, we have to have a cage there. We have to have a cage behind the passenger area or where the inmate would go to protect road flares and tools and everything else, all of the gear that gets carried. So it's just it's a totally different car. The consoles are different, the light bars are different, and so the cars, some of these cars that are coming out of service are just incompatible with the new cars that are going into service. So there is a potential, and we're exploring this with Sierra Electronics now. We went to them for the first time last year to do this lock, stock, and barrel across our new patrol fleet. The potential of being able to try and get at least a couple of cycles out of this equipment, it's just hard to predict. You know, with the weather and the elements and all the things that these things are out in. Once those light bars start to get sun bleached and scarred after they're on the roads for a while, they just don't put out the kind of light. But there is a chance we may get 2 cycles of cars out of these. But essentially, what you see here today is taking the place of stuff that was coming out that was on the older generation cars that just need to be redone.
Is there any salvage value to the stuff that the old cars you're replacing? The emergency equipment?
Well, I mean, to potentially to other agencies, the problem is a lot of the older stuff we had wasn't the full, and we've been over the past 3 years been changing over from the old halogen bulbs to the LEDs because they take up so much less power. So there may be, but a lot of the aftermarket light bar stuff on the market now, you just almost can't hardly give it away. Some of the iron, the cages, the bumpers and stuff like that, we'll get scrap value out of those, but the light bars and the consoles, a lot of that will just we won't.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Brian. What's the pleasure of the board? Moved and seconded, all over there. Aye. Richard? Richard, I think Supervisor Chapman is going to go represent the county at the pool meeting, but before he goes, maybe we'll take up item H4 that he can report on.
Okay. Very well.
Unless you share it.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, and if you would indulge me, I'd like to take up H3 and 4 together. Would that be all right? And then I'll put some things up on the screen. We've had discussion. I think I'll take H4 first, which is the Honey Lake Valley Recreational Authority Financing Plan that Mr. Chair Chapman has to read again. So we can continue on. And so, let me so got discussions with Mr. Hancock, and I think he's probably left to go to the JPA meeting. And we've come up with a draft plan that we'd like to run by both bodies, the City Council and the Board of Supervisors, for discussion and get some input. We think it's probably a viable plan. It does include a slight delay from the current schedule, but the plan in essence would be that we continue our $200,000 contributions through the 2015-16 year, totaling $600,000 in contributions. We each entity, and this would be each entity, contribute $1.1 million to in a lump sum towards the effort, rendering a little over $3 million for the construction of the pool. So that would result in, if you take our $200,000 per year commitment for 15 years, that's about $3 million. That would render a remaining commitment of $1.3 million. And the way we've, Mr. Hancock and I have calculated some discount rates, that would equate to rather than the 200,000 a year, we would contribute the 1.1 million in 2015, and then 80 to 90,000 per year for the remaining, what would be 12 years of
How much?
15-year commitment.
The glare is on that 80 there, yeah, I was going to say the glare is on that one number, unfortunately.
And the next item is how I want to discuss how to get the 1.1 million that we would contribute.
That adds up to the same amount at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Adds up to the same commitment, the same $200,000 commitment. So that's the guts of. I'm trying. This is a little bit simplistic, but I think at this stage of the game, that's essentially what we're looking at. That would, Mr. Hancock's back. That would mean that we would have the funds available through this scenario until the beginning of the 15-16 year. The financing I'm going to talk about in a minute.
Pool board meeting? I got it, Jared, is the pool board meeting now?
3:30.
No, it's a 3 o'clock meeting, but they announced that the board was taking up this item and was going to be done soon, and so they're waiting to start the meeting.
Okay, because I was headed over there as soon as this was done.
I'll be quick. So there's that. Is there any questions on that component of the plan? And Mr. Hancock may wish to comment as well. If not, I'll move quickly onto the whole.
How can you have an 80 to 90, that's a $10,000 disparity? I mean, why is that such a very concern?
Well, Mr. Hancock and I have a friendly debate about what discount rate to use as far as the financing. I favor a 4% discount rate because that's effectively what our borrowing costs are going to be for the money that we would be borrowing, which would result in about an $80,000 contribution. Mr. Hancock favors a 3% or so discount rate, which roughly equates to the $90,000, and perhaps we'll meet in the middle. But that's the variable in that calculation is what discount or interest rate we use. So if I'll just move quickly on to the next slide here. So, and this is H3 item. I explored briefly and came to the conclusion it's not that good of an idea that the securitization of the tobacco revenue, and I've included an analysis that an underwriter provided me in there. The problems with securitizing the tobacco funds are many. The character of that money is such that investors require large reserves, bond reserves. They require much more analysis in terms of the tobacco income stream than they do, and I'm comparing this to a standard financing or a certificate of participation type financing, which would be secured by basically by the general fund of the county. And so to compare the tobacco securitization to a standard COP financing, we're probably looking at a difference between as much as 20% interest to 4% interest. And that has a lot to do with the fixed costs of issuing the tobacco securitization. And so all I need to do is look at the magnitude of that number, and I take that option off the table, the actual tobacco securitization. Now, what I would recommend is that we, from a policy standpoint, we dedicate those tobacco revenues to make the payment on a standard financing through a certificate of participation, achieving the 4% rate using the same income stream to make the payment, and, knowing that our full faith and credit is on the hook to pay the bill, which we don't have any intention of not paying it. So that would, having said that, that would be my notion for how to finance this. Probably over a 30-year horizon, through a certificate of participation, similarly to those of you that remember the financing or refinancing of the jail. That's how we did that. That involves
That was a 20-year CFP that we did back in 1989.
the way a certificate of participation works really quickly is that the county, in this case, would take some of its assets and they would lease it to a third-party corporation. In our case, that would be the Lassen County Public Improvement Corporation, is what we formed in the past. That entity would use that leasehold interest as collateral to borrow money, which would be paid to the county for capital improvements. In turn, the county would pay that entity, that Public Improvement Corporation, a lease payment, and they would pay the bondholders from that.
And the lease payment, the source of revenue for our lease payment would be those tobacco settlement monies.
Correct.
Because like when we did the COP with the jail, it was the revenue stream that we got from the state for the return to custody facility was the money that we used to retire to the COP. So as long as we had inmates from the state, we were able to pay it off.
Essentially, yes. So, and so we would achieve, and I hoped to have a better analysis for you today, I just didn't get it completely done, and I didn't want it in complete format. But it looks like with the current interest rate environment, we'd be looking at around a 4% total cost when you include all the fixed costs of issuance and the interest payments. So in order to, if we did a $4 million issue, and the reason I say all these conditional statements is that there are fixed costs associated with any financing. If you borrow $1 million, you still have to have a bond counsel, and on and on and on. So some of them are fixed, some of them are variable. But my recommendation, I believe, is going to be to do a little bit larger financing and encompass 3 major projects that we've discussed, and I want to get some confirmation from the board that they are priorities to pursue. The first being the contribution to the pool. The second being the acquisition of a facility. We've identified one that we're negotiating on Riverside Drive for some county facilities.
The BLM property.
Correct.
Or BLM building.
The property that's currently occupied by the BLM.
Yeah.
And the third would be a remodel of the courthouse to accommodate all the ADA requirements and more use of the upstairs space in that facility. I think, and these are preliminary numbers that I'm putting up here, but I think they're in the ballpark of reality to get these projects done. What I'm asking the board today for is some direction to contract with a financial advisor to help us put together that financing package and hire all the players that go into a financing, bond counsel, underwriters, and so on. This is a project that, in my discussions with some of the underwriters, could be, if everything were in place, could be done in 90 days, but I would anticipate a little longer than that from the time that we actually pull the trigger and say we're going to do it. So if it's still the board's direction, I'd like to move forward on that shortly after the first of the year. There will be several decision points along the way that I would bring back to you, but I want to make sure that we have a clear direction to go forward before I do so.
So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I think it would be good just to sort of lay things out, if you will, just so we can all get a good understanding. So what's the exact amount of tobacco settlement payment we get each?
Okay, the tobacco settlement is variable, and let me try to get this as accurate as I can. It's based upon a couple of factors. One of those factors is the percentage of our county's population relative to the state population. And the projections that I've seen, and I'm not sure if I excluded them, I think I did. Maybe they're not included in fact. The projections that have been done indicate that our population as a percentage of the state population is going to decline, going forward to the next 30 or so years. And that's probably more a function of other areas growing than us not. The other factor in that tobacco payment is tobacco sales, which are also expected to decline. So the payment will decline in terms of usage per capita. For the numbers of bodies may go the short answer to your question is it's around $300,000 a year.
And then the amount
With declining value.
the amount we voted to contribute is 200.
Right.
So then,
But let me back up just a minute. This entire financing, the $4 million financing, would probably result in a debt service payment between $250,000 and $300,000.
So it will consume the bulk of the back and settlement money, so that 80 or 90,000 you're talking about would have to be found or funded out of some other line item account.
yeah. So the total debt service is 200. The pool is basically just about 25% of the total. So the pool debt service would be about 50,000.
No, the debt service would be between $250,000 and $300,000.
Oh, between 250 and 3.
I can run some numbers here. So it
Pool
would,
would be about 75,000.
yeah, let me,
But the approach he's taking here, using those money, is he's getting something more than just a pool.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand
He's
that.
getting the ELM building and the courthouse
No,
room.
I just think it's important that, because we, as a board, we, voted,
Right.
the two, I just want to see how much that 200 were.
there's one other important factor here. We're talking about a $200,000 a year commitment for 15 years, now 14 or 13. This would be predicated on a 25 or 30 year financing.
Yeah.
So there's a distinction to be made there as well.
And the tobacco settlement goes to 15.
Goes forever.
Oh, does it? We keep- okay.
Yeah, it's
Declining value.
Okay, so then, so basically, if using those numbers, the 75,000 of the 200 we committed, to the pool, would be used to debt service this, and then we would need what did you estimate, about 80,000 ongoing?
80 to. That's also a number that Mr. Hancock and I think is a reasonable subsidy for the operation.
So
based
then,
on what we know.
so we would be, if that was the case, so then our commitment would actually be lower in our pool commitment, about 155 to 160,000.
In absolute real dollars, that's true. However, we're contributing a significant portion of it today instead of 10 years from now. So-
Yeah, but not out of our pocket.
Right.
Borrowed money.
Right.
So I,
But it is in
yeah,
our pocket, we gotta pay it back.
right, but we're paying it back with the money we've already earmarked for the
But
pool.
that's not enough.
No, it is. When you lump all that other stuff in there, it's not. We're actually paying, it's gonna cost us like here's what I'm going, I just think it's important because what's gonna happen is, we're getting a loan, which, I mean, I support the whole deal, but there is, it just shouldn't be, when it comes to the budgets each year, it shouldn't be a thing where we're like looking at the pool going, oh geez, we gotta fund this. Because, it's set up a little different now. Because the other way, the 200 was sort of set on autopilot to go there. And now it's, just the mindset's different. Now we're paying back this loan, but it needs to be well said that of the loan repayment.
What this does, though, is with the monies that we have to work with, we actually get more bang for our buck. And that, to me, it's not just that we're going to have the pool, but we're going to be able to take care of the space needs. And what isn't also included in that is eventually, this building that we're in right here is disposable. And, I mean, not that we're going to get like millions of dollars for it, but whatever value that exists with this building comes back in towards offsetting even some of those costs. So,
No, I'm all for it, but I think it just it needs to be known that, and Richard, thanks for, putting this together, but, so we're able to achieve all this and lower our annual contribution.
I think that's at least, it wouldn't be any higher, maybe lower.
Who came up with this plan?
Jared and tonight. Everybody thinks we hate each other.
What did you have like?
Oh, so now
You
you're
were having beer at the time?
So
Or?
I don't see any proof. So now you're blaming Jared. If it goes south, it's Jared's fault. If it flies, I did it.
Now you're starting to see my.
Well, you did. Richard was a politician before he was.
You gotta watch it, Jared. He's. Okay, I'm gonna go to the public now. Okay, Eileen?
My understanding is that $200,000 from the tobacco fund is now presently designated to go to a JPA, a separate entity, a public entity, but a separate entity. If you do this, doesn't the swimming pool become a capital improvement as the new facility on Riverside and the courthouse remodel? Those are all capital improvements.
No, I don't think it does. Just because it comes out of the same financing, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't believe that
Where's the separation anymore, Richard?
just
Between a
like,
private or another public entity, which you're funding by X amount of dollars, than to create funding for 3 capital improvement plans, which brings it back here to pay for.
the way I view it and believe the accurate way to look at this is that the county and the city each are obliged currently to contribute $200,000 a year for 15 years, or have agreed to do so. What we propose as an alternative is to contribute, rather than the $200,000 a year, the lower annual payment and an upfront lump sum payment. The way that we propose, the county, to fund that is through a borrowing like this, and the city has their own way of doing that. I don't think that makes it a capital improvement under the definition that we use as a capital improvement.
Well, I can see when you were initially talking about taking out a loan, as the JPA was doing, taking out a loan from the city and the county to put together. But you now lumped in 2 capital improvement plans within the county in this borrowing. You might have to check into that, because you may not be able to do it.
I don't see any barriers to using this funding mechanism.
I do.
And then one other question I had. So what would happen, say, if the, so if like the courthouse remodel, that's, I think, given, we could do that, but where are we at contractually with the new facility on Riverside?
We're not. We
Oh,
don't.
that doesn't happen.
So, yeah.
Well, that.
And the excess would just stay in the general fund. That's it. We get a lot of.
And I would suggest that we don't complete the financing until we have a contract.
And then that thing goes sideways, and we just reduce the loan.
Correct. We either reduce the loan or we use it for another acquisition or construction. I would propose that the leasehold interest that we propose to collateralize this would probably include that new facility.
Is there any other public comment?
I just have a quick question. Are you going to look at other financing mechanisms besides COP, or I don't know what the county's options are?
This would be a COP.
Okay, but with your bond council, you look at. I don't know what's available.
Sure, we'll
to the
look.
county, look at everything. I'm assuming so. But
The reality of public
right.
borrowing is COP is probably the most logical and cheapest way to borrow, without going to a ballot measure.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, Richard, what is the difference, what's the definition of a capital improvement to you?
Well, we've defined that in our capital improvement plan.
What is it to you? Can you explain it?
A capital improvement?
Yeah.
It's capital that the county owns in a certain dollar amount.
The county owns. Okay, so you think borrowing the money, is it county money that you're spending to borrow the money? Will you pay the interest on it?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I'm saying if you're going to go borrow some money or bond money, Isn't that county money that you're putting up there, even though it's on paper?
Yes, it is county money, yes.
And
The
you're
county will
gonna,
borrow the money, yes.
and you're gonna spend it on improvement,
No, we're going to spend it on a contribution to a joint powers authority that's going to build an improvement.
but you're part of that.
The county is part of that, yes. Was that?
I'm a little confused. I think what I was asking is, can you borrow money to do a capital improvement? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I'm saying that it's still capital improvement, no matter how you look at it.
Well, but if,
A swimming
yes and
pool,
no. If
a
the
swimming
swimming
pool
pool is
isn't,
not a capital improvement. The new facility in the courthouse in Marlow is, but that doesn't mean you can't borrow from the same fund. And use part of it for a capital improvement, part of it for a new swimming pool. I mean, am I correct or not?
a swimming pool is a capital improvement. I will agree with you. A swimming pool is a capital improvement. It's not the county's capital improvement.
Okay, that's what the line. We got a JPA getting part of the money and the county's getting part of the money.
In any case, I'm sure the county council or Richard will net it out. Like Richard said, this conceptually, what he proposes is a way to see the pool as a potential mechanism, and I'm sure all those issues are going to be well worked out. But,
A lot of steps to go.
I think what the reason, and I asked Richard, thank you for getting this on today, is I felt it was important for the pool JPA to know where the board, to check the pulse of the board, our commitment to coming up with a mechanism to be able to build a swimming pool in a relatively quick time, wherever the funds are going to come from, and at the same time achieving a couple of these other goals. So that's how.
And I would even say, I like it. I didn't think you and Jared could do this. You must have had some whiskey there when.
So it was, Bob, it was hard pulling, it was like pulling teeth getting the two of them working together. I'm thrilled to death to see that they're making progress.
Yeah, I'm really confused.
Small steps, small steps.
Don't worry, it won't last.
I didn't know that was possible, so maybe the pool is going to pull us into something better without us even knowing it. They say in the black, there's silver lining in every black cloud, right?
It's called teamwork. Okay, so let's move on. So basically, is to give some direction.
Yeah, what I would like is direction to move forward with this plan, and which that would include probably first and foremost my contracting with a financial advisor to put together a plan. I think I could do that under my authority. The dollar amounts would be under my authority, but I want yes.
As of last week, I think it's more than that.
You guys can add your
We
together.
approved that, didn't we?
Rich, you have it, Bob, 100, you got two.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, I'll make the motion for you.
well, these are just for direction,
Yeah, that's fine. You're right.
and then now because Jim, are you going to go to the?
Yeah, after the action is taken, I'm going to excuse myself and go to the meeting, but I'll second Tom's motion.
This is our vote.
Yeah, it'd be best.
Kevin first.
It'd be nice to have it on record.
Give
Give
direction.
direction.
Yes.
Roll call vote.
No.
Yeah, I am.
I think the direction is beneficial
For you, before we go anywhere.
what's the motion, Tom?
So to give staff direction to pursue the financing mechanism.
To pursue this financing plan. I mean, he has to bring back a lot of.
There's a
stuff.
lot of work. This is just.
We're a long ways from there. It's gonna take at least a case of Jack Daniels to get through this.
Jokes today.
I buy it, Richard drinks it.
Perfect.
I like the plan.
So there's a motion.
Black label.
Is there a second?
I say.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Excuse me.
We really need a full vote.
Yeah, if you want, that's to make it more efficient.
Supervisor Powell would like to know if
Requesting
he
a full
vote
vote.
yes all on his own, well, without any interruptions from the rest of us while we vote collectively. So
Maybe your last good vote, your bad
Put
vote.
your poll vote.
Okay, Supervisor Chapman?
Aye.
Supervisor Alba?
Aye, just because I like to see how this is.
Whoa, things are happening.
No, I want to see how this plays out.
Here, have another piece of.
Hey, Jim, what did you put in that chocolate? What did you
Yeah.
put in that candy?
That's
Secret ingredient.
Aye.
Supervisor Platt?
Aye.
Cameron?
Aye.
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 You got to vote twice. Thank you.
Thank you, we'll proceed.
Good luck. Thanks. Thank you. All right, let's take up item H1, Veteran Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The resignation of our veteran service officer provides the opportunity to